scientists were horrified to discover that a strange creature under the microscope could divide infinitely. This scene, which defied all understanding, immediately made Ira incredulous. He thought he was just seeing things, but upon checking again, he discovered that this creature had already divided into even more organisms. Ira quickly used the computer to analyze the DNA and, to his astonishment, found that this creature did not belong to Earth because one of its chromosomes was composed of 10. To put this into perspective, a single pair of human chromosomes consists of only 2. Ira immediately excitedly called over his colleague Harry, as this discovery was enough to earn them a Nobel Prize. However, Harry looked confused after seeing it because he found that this creature was somewhat different from what Ira had described. Puzzled, Ira hurriedly looked closer and was shocked to find that the creature, which had just been single-celled, had now become multicellular. This indicates that the creature was not only dividing but also evolving continuously. What Ira hadn't anticipated was that this creature's rate of evolution was so fast that in just a few hours, it had achieved what had taken Earth's life forms hundreds of millions of years. No one knows what they will ultimately become. And yet, this miraculous species came from the alien meteorite right in front of them. To unveil the mystery of this extraterrestrial visitor, Ira once again led a team to the meteorite crater, but he didn't expect that the originally empty crater was now occupied by something that closely resembled mushrooms, and the air was filled with an unpleasant odor. A layer of white fog even enveloped their feet. Ira took out his instruments and detected not only hydrogen sulfide but also large amounts of ammonia and methane. It turns out the white fog was released by the mushrooms with the purpose of changing the local environment to form an atmosphere similar to Earth's. Just then, Nadine suddenly felt something wriggling under her feet. Ira quickly lifted the white fog with his hand and found that the ground was covered with worms, densely packed enough to make one's scalp tingle. It seems that this species had evolved further. Ira initially wanted to take a worm back for research, but as soon as the worm came into contact with the air, it suffocated and died. Clearly, the worms were not yet adapted to Earth's oxygen, so they had no choice but to package the worms and the white fog together and take them away. Ira was once again shocked by their rate of evolution, as it would take Earth's life forms at least 2 billion years to reach this level. But while they were discussing, they found that one of the worms suddenly split into 2 in an instant. Such a mode of reproduction was truly bizarre. Unaware of the danger, they quietly took the samples back to the lab to continue their research. Ira even specifically instructed Harry that, for the sake of their Nobel Prize in biology, they must not let anyone else know about the existence of these creatures. Little did they know that at that moment, a waiter in a swimming pool not far from the meteorite crater also discovered a large number of worms, which were coming out of the cracks in the floor. But the worms soon suffocated and died after emerging. Just as the waiter was about to use insecticide, he turned around and saw something in the water purifier, which scared him enough to leave the area quickly. The next day, Ira and Harry drove back to the meteorite crater to take more samples back for research. Suddenly, a helicopter flew overhead. The thing they feared most had happened. Someone had leaked the news, and the military had taken over the area. Fortunately, Ira knew Jan Woodman from the army, which allowed them to enter the military base. It turned out that Ira had once been a military biologist, and the two had been colleagues at the Pentagon, and Woodman knew about the meteorite crater because he had monitored Ira's laboratory computer. Such a shameless act left Ira speechless. Just then, Allison from the CDC also arrived. After a brief introduction, Woodman began to scold Ira and Harry for not reporting earlier. After all, discovering the existence of extraterrestrial life is not a small matter but can be considered the greatest discovery in history. Therefore, this area must be controlled by the military, as they have more professional equipment for research. However, out of respect for their past collaboration, Woodman allowed Ira and Harry to come and visit at any time. After hearing this, Ira was instantly infuriated. The meteorite crater was their discovery first. How could they just hand over the credit? The two sides could not agree and ended up in court, but the result was disappointing. Naturally, the court also sided with the military. Ira and Harry returned to the lab, angry, only to find something even more infuriating. The lab's door lock had been tampered with, and inside it was a mess. Not only were the experimental samples stolen, but all the experimental data in the computers had also disappeared. This is obviously the work of the military again. Now Ira and Harry had nothing left, but they had no plans to give up. They then disguised themselves as soldiers and a colonel and sneaked into the military camp under the cover of night, planning to steal some samples to continue their research. With their excellent acting skills, they successfully blended into the base, which had been completely transformed by the military. Two researchers who had come out of the meteorite crater were holding a strange worm in their hands. Too busy to notice anything unusual, Ira and Harry quickly put on protective suits, ready to enter the meteorite crater to find out what was happening. At this time, the woman through the monitor found the lift arrogant Ira and Harry, but they thought it was their own people, so they still did not notice something wrong. What Ira and Harry hadn't expected was that in just a few days, there had been astonishing changes here, with bizarre plants growing and various strange worms evolving. A small cave had formed its own independent ecosystem. At this moment, a creature with 12 legs appeared in their line of sight. It had 2 heads, each with its own consciousness, seemingly fighting for control of the body. But in the next second, the worm became the dinner of another monster. They hadn't expected even the plants here to be carnivorous. While Ira and Harry were amazed, they did not forget their original purpose, but Harry accidentally stepped on a worm just as he stepped out, and in an instant, the worm's body was completely devoured by other worms. Ira quickly opened the container and let Harry grab a sample. Harry immediately set his sights on a creature that looked like a cool lobster, but just as he was about to grab it, bigger bugs ate smaller bugs. Ira and Harry were scared, but after recovering, they started to make fun of the monster's hindbrain.
Who does that remind you of?
Dr. Reed?
Bullseye.
Little did they know that this action would reveal their true identities. After all, people from their military would definitely not act so foolishly. Allison, in front of the monitor, was even more furious. Just as they were preparing to continue extracting meteorite samples, Allison arrived with 2 researchers. She warned Ira and Harry that their actions were illegal, and the military had the right to arrest them if they didn't leave soon. But Ira then revealed that their lab had been ransacked. Clearly, Allison was unaware, but the 2 researchers behind her couldn't help but laugh out loud. While the 2 sides were arguing non-stop, a large mosquito suddenly pierced Harry's protective suit and went straight in. Feeling something was wrong, Harry immediately shouted out loud, but in the next second, the bug appeared inside Harry's face mask. Ira quickly opened the oxygen, trying to kill the bug, but this move didn't seem to work. Then Harry was urgently pushed into the operating room, where they prepared to immediately perform surgery to forcibly remove the bug from his body. Seeing the bug moving in Harry's thigh, the doctor immediately decided to amputate. 1 second, Harry was constantly refusing. The next second, he saw the bug move towards the root of his thigh. It seems that at the crucial moment, Harry still knew what was most important. However, this bug was very naughty and turned its head and burrowed into Harry's large intestine. With no time to hesitate, the doctor immediately pulled out the forceps and, with the help of Ira and Allison, skillfully removed the bug. The moment it came into contact with the air, the bug immediately died, but Harry was not grateful at all. Instead, he was upset about the doctor's roughness just now. To soothe his wounded spirit, Harry immediately asked for an ice cream cone. However, they did not know that something terrible was happening in the town. At the golf course not far from the meteorite crater, an old man was preparing to have a date with his beloved old treasure but was attacked by a monster that suddenly leaped out of the water. The old treasure arrived just in time to witness this cruel scene. The next day, monsters that looked like dogs but weren't appeared in the residents' homes. Despite their harmless appearance, they bit people mercilessly. However, like the other monsters, it didn't take long for them to suffocate and die. Ira and Harry followed the police to the scene of the incident, and they were amazed to find that the monsters had burrowed out from underground. And Wayne, a trainee firefighter, made an astonishing discovery after surveying the nearby area. Ira and Harry hurried over to see, but the scene before them took them by surprise. The valley was filled with dying monsters, resembling dinosaurs, also on the brink of death due to their inability to adapt to Earth's environment. Luckily, they had this fatal weakness, otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. As a geologist, Harry quickly deduced why the monsters were appearing here. It turns out that this area is full of underground caves and abandoned mine shafts, connected like a neural network, stretching from the golf course all the way to the meteorite crater, and there happened to be an exit here, which obviously explained why the monsters were appearing in various places. Unexpectedly, just as Harry finished speaking, a monster staggered up from the ground. Under the shocked gaze of the 3, the monster spat out an embryo from its mouth. However, the event wasn't over yet. A young dragon broke out from the shell. showing no discomfort, and immediately flew away, flapping its wings. Unexpectedly, this newly born monster had adapted to Earth's atmosphere. Sensing danger, the three immediately followed the direction in which the monster flew, and the monster's target was a crowded department store, where the sudden appearance scared everyone into fleeing in all directions. Soon, Ira and the other two caught up. They went to a gun store, each picked a shotgun, and prepared to have a big showdown in the department store. At this moment, a girl in a fitting room was changing clothes, completely unaware of the danger approaching. The moment she opened the door, the girl was snatched away by the monster, and the mischievous monster carried her around the mall, flying back and forth. Spotting their target, the three hurriedly chased after it, but the monster's speed was so fast that it disappeared with the girl in an instant. Seeing a microphone nearby, the clever Wayne suddenly had an idea.
Step back, Harry. I'm gonna shoot him.
No, stand down. I'm gonna kill this one myself.
Wayne ignored them and continued to sing on his own. Unexpectedly, his method really worked. The monster responded. Wayne continued to sing loudly, successfully attracting the monster. At this moment, Ira and Harry on the second floor were both ready. When the monster approached, the three's coordinated efforts successfully defused a crisis. However, the proliferation of monsters still caught the media's attention, and various media began to compete to report the news. Some media even surrounded the state government, with everyone waiting for Governor Lewis to explain. The bewildered Lewis was driven to distraction. He flew directly to the meteor crater, angrily confronted Woodman, and demanded to know why he hadn't reported the matter sooner. But Woodman also didn't know that the situation would develop to this extent. Lewis didn't want to hear Woodman's excuses. He just wanted to know what the situation was now. According to the latest satellite imaging data, the situation was already very dire. The alien life's rate of evolution was beyond imagination. It had almost taken over the entire town. If they didn't find a way to stop it soon, the alien life would cover Arizona in a few weeks, and it could even spread across the entire United States within a few months. At this time, Ira and his two companions also arrived at the base, stating that they had just killed one of the monsters. However, Woodman blamed them, saying that it was they who had brought the monsters out of the restricted area. Even Allison couldn't stand it anymore. Both sides once again argued fiercely, but Lewis didn't care about that. He demanded that everyone must immediately come up with a solution. Woodman planned to evacuate the town's residents and then use napalm bombs for a barbecue feast. Fleming even suggested dropping a nuclear bomb directly. Of course, Lewis wouldn't agree to drop a nuclear bomb on his own land, so he reluctantly agreed to Woodman's proposal. But before they could start their operation, they were horrified to discover that high-intelligence gorilla monsters had evolved in the meteorite crater and destroyed all the cameras inside. Everyone sensed that something terrible was about to happen. Clearly, the monsters were preparing to escape. Soldiers fully armed stood at the elevator entrance, only to find that there were no monsters in the elevator that came up. Just as everyone was confused, the monster jumped out directly from a pit next to them. They hadn't expected the gorilla monster to use tactics, and the scene immediately fell into chaos. One person was directly thrown into the pit by the gorilla monster, and that gorilla monster also jumped down after him. Ira was accidentally caught by another gorilla monster. Afraid of causing accidental injuries, the soldiers didn't dare to shoot rashly. Fortunately, Harry acted in time to save him, but he himself was knocked away by the monster's punch. In the end, it was Wayne who quickly picked up a pistol from the ground and dealt with the monster. Shocked, Lewis immediately gave Woodman a death order to eliminate these monsters at all costs and then left in a huff. Since that was the case, there was no reason for Ira and his team to stay any longer, but as they were about to leave, Allison followed them with some meteorite samples. She had long disliked Woodman, so she chose to join Ira's team. As they returned to the lab, the military had already begun evacuating the town's residents, but some fearless people started their end-of-the-world revelry. Back in the lab, Ira looked worriedly at the meteorite samples in the container. He feared that the napalm bombs might not be able to destroy them. Unexpectedly, Harry's unintentional action made Ira's worries come true. He accidentally dropped a burning match into the container, resulting in a terrifying scene. the meteorite samples inside mutated and kept expanding, instantly growing several hundred times larger. It seems that fire not only doesn't destroy these alien life forms, but it also increases their rate of evolution. With such a small piece of meteorite sample reaching such an astonishing scale, it's hard to imagine what the result would be if a large amount of napalm bombs were used to destroy the meteorite crater. They wanted to tell Woodman about this discovery and have him stop the operation, but Woodman didn't take it seriously. They had no choice but to find a way to stop it themselves. Their urgent task was to find the alien life form's weakness. Otherwise, all their efforts would be in vain. At this moment, Ira noticed the periodic table on Allison's back and immediately found a way to combat the alien life forms. He reasoned that humans are carbon-based life forms, and by following this logic, he saw that the poisoning element for carbon-based life forms is arsenic. The alien life forms are nitrogen-based, so by the same method, he deduced that their weakness is selenium. Although they didn't know if it would work, they had no choice but to try it out, treating the situation as if a dead horse were a live horse doctor. But a new problem arose. To kill such a large number of alien life forms, they would need at least 2,000 liters of selenium, and there was no way they could find that in a short amount of time. Just when everyone was at a loss, Deke and Danny said they could handle it. It turned out they had always used the same brand of shampoo and had never had dandruff. The main ingredient was selenium sulfide. Everyone was overjoyed when they heard this, and they immediately sprang into action. They collected all the shampoo in the town, filling an entire fire truck. Amidst the cheers of the public, the group set off in the fire truck. When they arrived at their destination, the military was also ready under Lewis's direct supervision. With time pressing, they couldn't afford any delay. Ira led the team directly into the meteorite crater, while Wayne was outside, ready to open the valve at any moment. However, the plan didn't go as smoothly as expected. A few gorilla monsters sensed the threat and tried to stop them. What was worse, just as Ira called Wayne to open the valve, the meteorite crater exploded violently. Unexpectedly, Woodman had carried out the bombing mission ahead of schedule. He seemed to want to blow up Ira and the others. As the flames shot into the sky, the thing they feared most still happened. The alien life forms were not killed. They rapidly expanded and began to devour everything around them, and even the mutated monsters couldn't escape their fate. Seeing the terrifying tentacles quickly rising, the group was so scared that they hurriedly ran towards the exit of the cave. At this time, Lewis still didn't know what had happened. He naively thought the problem had been solved, but the next second, the ground began to shake violently, and then the alien life forms broke through the soil. Their volume was still increasing. Ira and his group had just driven the fire truck away from the scene when a huge tentacle burst from the ground. The tentacle lightly slapped and destroyed a large number of houses, a sight that stunned Lewis and his group. But the monster didn't stop growing. Its huge body was like a moving mountain, and the deafening roar was truly chilling. The soldiers could only flee in panic, with no room to resist. Even more terrifying was that the now stationary monster began to split. At this rate, the entire world would be occupied by the monsters. But Woodman, the cause of all this, was getting ready to make his escape. Just then, they suddenly noticed Ira and his group driving the fire truck towards the monster. Since things had already reached the worst possible state, they could only try to use the shampoo one last time. Soon, the fire truck arrived right under the monster, and they successfully found the monster's nose. Though the smell here was truly overpowering, now they had no choice but to face the difficulty head-on. They planned to inject the shampoo directly into the monster's interior. This task was undoubtedly meant for Harry, as he had also experienced the unpleasant sensation as a large amount of shampoo entered the monster's body. The monster quickly showed a strange reaction. Clearly, the selenium sulfide in the shampoo was taking effect. When all the shampoo was used up, Ira and his group hurriedly drove the fire truck to make an emergency escape. At this time, the monster's body began to expand violently like a balloon, seeming about to burst. Finally, just in the nick of time, Ira and his group successfully escaped from inside, and the monster exploded at that moment. In the end, Ira's team became the heroes who saved the city, and each person received praise and rewards from Lewis. Only Allison and Ira were in a hurry to get into the fire truck, as if they had even more important things to do.